away. Here you have this great Grand Master. And the humble Ed Parker asked him, "What name do you want?" He said, "Ed." And he kept Ed probably for 30 or 40 years until suddenly he had to become a master, then a Grand Master, and things like that. But it meant absolutely nothing. The thing that I had, the biggest advantage, is that we studied with Ed directly, one-to-one. And Ed was a big man. And there was always someone going to want to know, does this work? And Ed's famous thing, let's find out. That means you're going to get hit and you're going to get hurt. Let me give you two instances of Ed Parker. It was in the afternoon, and someone walked in school. Obviously, he's a football player. He's probably 220, 6'2", and things like that. And he's eyeing Ed up. And as he comes in, he made sure that his back was to the wall. And Ed isn't saying a damn thing. And but this is kind of unnerving the guy because Ed had just stared him right in the eyes. And he makes a comment, "I hear you're pretty tough." Ed just moves over so he can't just walk out. And he's eyeing Ed up and down and things like that. And he knows he has to make a decision. In life, it's called a moment of truth. He said, "I hear you're pretty good." He said, "I'm sure I could take you. But if I'm wrong, something tells me I'll never play football again." So Ed then let him go. What Ed did, he just kind of turned to the side. The guy just walked out, never saw him again. And what Ed had planned to do, he was already set up. He was in critical distance. Heel palm was going to drive his head right into the concrete wall, and his kick was going to take his knee out, just that quick. One other little instance that I was there, the guy came in, he'd been drinking too much. Challenged Ed out, all Ed did is flipping with the back of the neck, that was the end of it. That guy sobered up so quick. And in the old days, we didn't have attorneys and things like that. When they walked into that door, you're going to be challenged. I never stepped onto the mat. I dropped them right out in the front office. Why should I let them get out and things like that? After a while, it became known you just didn't fool around. Your reputation was out there. But Ed's school actually was very small. He never planned on teaching the martial arts. He came over to be a police officer, but he wanted to work with youth. No, they wanted this big, strong, tough guy to work with the adults. So he borrowed $300 from a church friend and opened a school up there. No one knew what karate was. They didn't know what Kempo was, Judo, and things like that. And the typical thing we had on our signs, the only thing that everyone knew, Judo. Our school in St. Louis to this day, after 50 years, they would allow it to stay there. Illegal sign, Judo. They've been around so long. The karate school that we opened in San Francisco said Judo. Yes, that's something that people recognized. And the problem you have is that you get, for instance, it's hard enough to remember Judo. Okay? Then when you want Jet Kudo, what is that? Taekwondo, what is that? You have to re-educate the people. Okay. But what Ed really made his money off of was teaching private lessons in Hollywood. This is the Hollywood stars and things like that. Ed at his peak in Pasadena probably never had more than 30 students. Okay. But the advantage we had is that Ed did all of the teaching. Every bit of it. It's very organized and things like that. Okay. But after 3 months, he could see that my brothers and I had potential. At the end of 3 months, we took over all the beginning classes. and Ned taught only the advanced classes. The advanced classes had only about 3 to 4 people. And we were different than the rest of the world, is that we had mats. Parker had mats, the classic tatami mats to roll and fall on. And we differentiated ourselves all so that they had the most beautiful hardwood floors you've ever seen. Mark, can you be my uke again? Uke means dummy. And I asked Mark a question. You have you're a Shotokan man. What do you do when you get knocked down?
Shotokan man doesn't get knocked down.
That was their answer. And that's what the Gracie saw. All of these guys, we set them up. The Gracies would fight anyone in the world who couldn't grapple. And they all found out, those grapplers, okay, it wasn't until actually one of Bart Vale's guys changed this. It was a big fight in Florida. Conan is his name. And Maurice Smith is the guy's name. Unbelievable martial artist. How many of you ever heard the name Maurice Smith? 10 years undefeated kickboxing champion. Never heard of that, had you? Because after 1 year, no one wanted kickboxing. There was no money in it. And you got hurt. Anyway, I'll also get back to Ronda here in a second. Is that they set this fight up, and Maurice, look, no one wanted to fight him. He broke arms and legs. After 10 years, well, maybe you could beat him. First kick was low to the leg to go. He didn't like it. Second was he didn't like it. Third was to the leg. The fourth one, Conan dropped his hand, and that same kick across the neck that you saw in Ronda knocked him out. That's what I'll get into in a second. That's called the triangle of death. Yeah. My wife and I were in Tacoma, Washington, non-contact tournament, of course, and Earl Scholl, 4th degree black belt, took a vicious kick. When he hit the ground, he was dead. I'd also watched it at another tournament. The guy cut to there, and I'll get into what he is. You've got the one that's going to kill you on that is going to be the vagus nerve. Okay, now you saw the picture of Ronda, the greatest fighter in the world, could beat any one man. Well, all it took is one kick to the neck. Now what it is that there's a triangle of death. Don't look me in the eye. Come up here. Yeah. Kneel down. There's 3 major things we're talking about triangle. Okay. And the first, come over here, is a trachea or your jugular vein. And if you hit that hard enough, you're going to rupture it. If you rupture it, you're going to choke to death from here, unless they can pull a trachea out of you. Give me your arm here. Let me show you just how little pressure that actually takes from here. Okay, now let me put that on the throat. That's not fun, is it? Yeah. Whenever we're doing any of these, tap. Tap. The second thing that you're more familiar with from here is the strike to the carotid arteries on both sides of the neck. Okay. In choking for death, it takes between 8 and 10 seconds. Once that choke is applied, 8 to 10 seconds, the person passes out. If they don't regain consciousness, they die. It's just that simple. I've got a video out with the Judo LeBell. That's what Milo Savage. He put the choke on and he was unconscious for 20 minutes. If Judo LeBell had kept that choke on much longer, he would have died. Hey, what it is now before he gets from here. 3
seconds.
Do I have any females here? Anyway, I was running one, was it 2 weeks ago? And I could see there was a woman in the back, and I saw her mouth. That's bullshit. I left her unconscious on the floor. Suddenly, they've never had that choke put on them. Or they've never told me, come here. Yeah, no, yeah. Yeah. You made eye contact. Move back a little bit. There's 3 major groups of nerves we work on. The radial, the ulna, coming down where there's the crazy bone. Now Mark, can you just hold up a picture of me breaking?
They're going to ask about your orange shirt, too, when they see it, Dad.
I was a heavy breaker. When a martial artist walked into that studio, I said, okay, let's set up the boards. Let's find out who can and who can't break. It's that simple. Notice on this, the top board is not broken. That's focus and transference of power. 3 years ago, I was having trouble with my right hand. I had to go into the doctor, Chinese doctor. He laughed his ass off. He said, permanent nerve damage from all of that breaking. So he had, this hand will never be the same. But when you're going in for the strikes and things like that, I even asked Joe Luther, what's the primary object of fight? Don't get hit. Okay. The next thing is that I have to have some method of taking this person out. And I have to be able to take him out on one movement from here. So you come from here, turn around so they can see that face. That's barely touching it with my thumb. Okay. The thing is, stand up now. Just kneel down a little bit. Notice as I rake him in, he comes forward, exposing that entire area of the triangle from here. I catch the, he's getting gun shy. You won't make eye contact again, will you? Okay, catch the trachea. I catch the vagus nerve, and I catch the ulnar nerve. Okay, what makes this so deadly is that when you're striking from here, it stops the heart. That's why Earl Squalls, when he hit the ground, was dead. And remember the first technique that Ed Parker ever taught me. He said, it's the first technique I taught you, going to teach you. It's probably going to be the one that's going to save your life, which is our Chinese sword. One rake, oh boy, I felt it. I felt it. And twice I've been down in California and doing a new technique we're working on an inside lever. And then twice I chose the same woman. And twice I had to grab her because I was seeing stars. On the inside lever, grab from here, I reached the boom, and I had to grab. So you know these techniques work. Okay? So you have to worry about this is that, no, he's not at that distance, grab right. He's at that distance. I probably outweigh you by 50 pounds. But this woman only weighed 130 pounds, but she got it perfectly. So as we get into the self-defense techniques now, is that what works and what doesn't work. One thing I do like about the mixed martial arts and things like that, they learn to tap out real quick, don't you? You don't become a hero. Probably the person that really helps this is Mike Swain. Mike Swain is a great judo man. He also made his $1 million off of mats. He's now sold out. He thought it's over. At one time there were 15,000 mixed martial arts schools. Where are they now? Where are all those mats? everyone, and the good, if you had this tape completely with top-notch swing match, you're probably going to be $10,000 to $15,000. The thing, though, that Ed Park, we weren't so much into staying on the ground. Won't fall and get up. Do not stay on the ground. Is that the person that I learned my grappling from was Bill Paul. He was a bouncer in San Francisco at the clubs. And like he said, you go to the ground, that's fine. You go down with two men, you're going to get killed. You're going to get killed. And recently, the top Gracie brothers made a statement. Jiu-jitsu no longer works. It's called ground and pound. To be proficient in, let's say, any type of the choking and jiu-jitsu thing, like, you're talking 2 to 3 years. If you've got any size, in 2 to 3 weeks I can teach you to ground and pound. It's not scientific, but look, all you got to do is drive that head into the ground, the knees and things like that. Good, sit down again. Okay. You're looking at my weird checkered gi. And my son that's got the pants on it. And I'll be honest with you, I never cared for tournament fighting. Touch me, Mark. Then call point. That's it. No, in the mixed martial arts, you better be tapping out. Or you better have been knocked out or something like that. And that, the Tracys, look, I knew I would never be the greatest fighter in the world. I hired the greatest fighter in the world. It's just that simple. Let me give you an idea. Back then, Joe Louis was hot tempered and things like that. And he drove around in an old car and things like that. Put a seminar on, and afterwards I pulled him aside and said, I want to make an offer to you. This was my offer. Now this is back in the the late 60s. I'll pay you $50,000 in wages. I will give you a Cadillac Eldorado. We'll supply you with an apartment. I'll give you an unlimited American Express credit card. Didn't take long for him to take that out, did it? And for 7 years here, but what happened? He got to the point he didn't want to fight anymore. He wanted to become a movie star. So he said, goodbye, Joe. And what it is, they hate us so much is that you never see Joe Louis in a checkered gi in the magazines anymore, except for 2 to 3 instances. And from here, the only success he ever had was with Tracy. And this checkered gi goes back to Joe Louis. Joe Louis had a soft side to him that people didn't know what it's about. And what he said, I can't go out there and eliminate shoot fighting, non-contact fighting. But if we have 100 of these gis, there will be no more, and that's exactly it. And what replaced it? Kickboxing, which had no value whatsoever. And despite what people think, it wasn't Joe Louis that created kickboxing, it was me. We hired Joey Obio now, a tough fighter, boxer, to train Joe Louis. And I wanted to make sure now that there's no doubt that Tracy's turned out the toughest fighters in the world. Therefore, we've set up a big match. I guarantee the match, everything else. Joe Louis fought a black guy, unbelievable fighter by the name of Greg Baines. Ever heard of him? Another Tracy's black belt I couldn't lose. I was absolutely sure that Louis, but I didn't want to take the chance. Okay. And from that point on, when you saw that checkered gi, you knew that the hell was going to be paid. Talked to a top guy out of the South. He said, first time I saw that checkered gi, bowed in and got my nose broken. And like I say, is that, let me give you a little bit of story here. Bruce Lee had his school in Oakland. I had mine in San Francisco. We were both broke young kids and things like that. Had no money whatsoever. And it's a tournament in 1970. And Bruce is there, and we go out and have a little bit of tea. He said, what didn't I see? We were both broke. He said, all of a sudden, you have the largest chain of karate schools in the world, 200. Everyone sees, look at here, look at all these checkered gis and things like that. You have a fleet of Ferraris. We did. We had 4 Ferraris. You want your own Ferrari?
Sure.
Join Tracy's. You could end up just, look, we didn't know what to do with the money, I'll be honest with you. Okay. And he said, Joe Louis, now you've created kickboxing. He said, what didn't I see? That Joe, you weren't with the right, Bruce, you weren't with the right people. And like I warned him, there's no demand for a Chinese actor in the United States. You better go to China, which he did. But he never made any money. And I've got a whole article that's going to come out, the fight that Bruce Lee did not win. No, it's more than that. Bruce Lee never won any fights. You know, you hear these different stories and things. The man, okay, I want all of you mixed martial arts guys, I've got this tough kid. He's 5'7", 132 pounds. How long is it going to take to beat him? As soon as you get him to the ground. I introduced after Bruce Lee had actually, here are Bruce Lee's exact words to me. In all honesty, no one won that fight. He looked bad. He had no class. What had happened in the actual fight, I really don't want to get the whole fight. They ended up on the ground 3 different times. And Bruce said, it was embarrassing. Like 2 kids on a schoolyard. So one of the guys who had taught me the grappling and things like that was Bill Paul. Bill Paul was a judo captain, 6'2", 220 pounds. And I said, Bill, tell me about Bruce. He gave me one lesson. He said, the guy is a phony and a fraud. The last fight he had, he didn't win. He can't win. He said at 130 pounds, you can't go to the ground. Okay. But what happened then is that thinking this, how are you going to get out of this? I said, well, you're the team that's going now to the Olympics and you have to spend your time training and you won't have time for Bruce. He said, the guy said he couldn't do anything. He couldn't do anything. As I open for questions, a lot of things may come up. But all the people I'm talking about now, I'm 80. Last man standing. My brother Will is 78. My brother Jim is 76. And all these people who hear me talk about Joe Louis, Bruce Lee, I knew personally. With the exception of Elvis, oh, he's got some great stories, we were all poor. We were all poor. But what it is that after a while, the mixed martial arts, what you really had, Chuck Norris came over. He needed punches. Well, he picked the punches up. We brought the jiu-jitsu men in. I took a big outfit in Bart Vale. We wanted to find out what worked. Now, to give you an idea, now, this is back in the 70s. They paid Bart Vale $150,000 every year right up front in Japan at 2% income tax. Not only did they pay him here, and then they trained him. And pretty soon, he was winning, and they were sending him all over the world. And like these top guys said, I don't care if you won or lost. What did you learn? What did you learn? What can we pass on and things like this? And I've had conflicts with my own person, Bart Vale, because Bart Vale is 250 pounds. Most of you are not 250 pounds. What I liked about the Gracies, they fit every weight division. And what I liked about the Gracies, they had a counter, or a counter, or a counter, or a counter. But like you say, that from an early stage now, I'm one of the big people in the MMA, but I had to drop out. I didn't want to see blood and guts. Back then, remember, there were no weight divisions. You had to be a minimum of 6 foot tall and weigh 200 pounds. It just didn't happen. But the Gracies came in and brought some reality to it. And in most instances, they are real gentlemen. But there's points that ends, and they don't tell you about this. In Bart Vale's school is a very tough fighter. They call them young boys and things like that. And you brought Bart his food, and he trained you, the reward for it. And the Gracies made one very, very bad mistake. They declared that the Japanese jiu-jitsu was kickboxing. Shit, it didn't work. So, he took the top 3 Gracie brothers and beat them all. And the first worst one, the mayor, want to stand up? No. You get to stand there. Get in your fighting stand. He broke his leg and wouldn't let him tap out. And for a half an hour, then finally, Gracie had to throw the towel in. Yeah, so he took either. He eventually also, as he got older, lost it, but the first he just took him out there. You never, insult my family and things like that. That jiu-jitsu doesn't work. Okay, you sit down. At this point, what we're going to do is we're going to get in a lot of physical contact. But this is like I'm 80, last man standing. Here's your opportunity to ask questions. And I didn't put my hearing aid in, so move up here, Mark, translate it. And what I found is that, I get it. Is what I found, with few exceptions, most of the martial arts are gentlemen. And here's what I like about the Gracies in particular. The old man, when they tap out, it's over. It's just that simple. You respect that. And here's what I like about, once again, the guy's beating the hell out of you. You can tap out. There's nothing derogatory about you coming up against a great fighter and tapping out of it. It's not simple. I remember Joe Louis, and this is one of his top fights. He's fighting one of those top guys from the South. And I mean, he just, Louis annihilated him. So Black Belt interviewed him and said, what went wrong? He said, what went wrong? Louis just beat the shit out of me. He said, that's what happened. And for the first 10 fighters, they all wanted to fight Louis. No, they got to the point, no one wanted to fight Louis. It's just that you may have been a better fighter, but if you couldn't grapple and go to the ground, as soon as you hit the ground, it was all over. It was all over. Okay. But like I say, is that what happened then, 2 things happened that killed the martial art. New York's different. Ohio, last year, they issued 250,000 concealed carry permits. Is your martial art as good as the 38 or 44 or the Lady Smith and Wesson? And then the next thing that happened is that unless you were prepared for it, and this is where the money is, youth, we didn't see it. What I always wanted was enough youth to pay the rent. But there's a transition period here. That the average guy, I'm going to go back now, let's say he'd been in a war, wasn't convinced that junior black belts. Okay, But I have to get a little bit of theory now. Where is that's not a black belt. What the hell is he? What's the rank you have? Judo.
Black belt.
What it is Judo, and that allows you to have a black belt, a combination red black, or a complete red belt. So there's one step up, and in the Japanese system, they never give you a black belt. They give you Shodan, Nidan, Sandan, and without that, like you can have the name doctor. Now, is that a doctor? Is it a PhD? Or is it a medical doctor? Or is it a psychologist? You don't know. But he has the privilege at this point of avoiding this color. That's his choice. That's his choice. And it's only up to a certain point you're allowed to make that choice. But what it does is that, like say, and you look on the diplomas of the job, it never says black belt. It never says any belt whatsoever. It's first grade, second grade, third grade, fifth grade. And what happened is that when the famous fight with Mansky fought, the Japanese only had a fifth degree. Okay. What they did then, they decided they should correlate it to the Japanese. And in about 1953 to 54, they switched over from here. And if you were a fifth degree, you became a 10th degree. Fourth degree, so they just upped it to keep it here. And the one who has kept the belts are probably the Kurds or the Koreans. Actually, they do not give a black belt. They give a midnight blue. And the highest rank that they give following the jiu-jitsu from here is 9th degree. 9th degree. And that, where's the orange go? You can stand up. Come over. You're not going to get in. Is there any brown belts there? Good, stand up. When we got into the martial arts, everyone at that particular point followed the Japanese system. And what you had 2 degrees of white belt. And they were white belts. And then you went to brown belt. It's just that simple. But it's a long ways from being a white belt to going to a brown belt. It may be several years, or you may never get it whatsoever. And the Tracy's looked around then and said, there's got to be a better way of doing it. We contacted our suppliers in Japan. And they had different colored belts for different reasons. And I had a specific game. What colors can you give it? Orange, purple, blue, green, and yellow. I didn't like any of them. What macho martial artist would like to have an orange or yellow belt? No. But also we found that the transition somehow is right at the green and the brown. At this particular point, time becomes a real element. We contacted our suppliers in Japan, and we didn't want orange. And they had mismatched the dye. This is supposed to come out red. They supplied us 15,000 orange belts at 10 cents a piece, delivered in San Francisco. I'm in a belt business. Come up here also, get over here. Now, another thing that I didn't like, stand up. Both of you there. Nothing really distinguished you from being a Japanese system. We went to the black gi. Good guys wear black. And in the Orient, the bad guys wear white. It is a checkered horses movie. And this is the trade-off we made with the Kempo people. I'll sell you if you'll let us have the black belt. I mean the black gi. And there are a group of Japanese that come over here, full contact, will not fight us if we have a black gi on. Because here's what I'm telling you, I'm going to kill you. Like for instance, Bart Vale, my guy, we had a fight set up with the Gracies. And Bart got a serious head injury. I mean, he beat the guy, but he really split open. And I went to the Gracies and I said, what will it take for Bart to win this fight? They said, Bart's going to have to kill him. End of fight. End of fight. So as you go along, you have, oh, where did they come from? Here. And the thing about this, like the black gi, we have groups from over in Japan will not fight even on friendship. You go ahead and sit down again. All of this up to this point, it's just been a general overall. And I want to add one little thing, then open it up to you. Kempo is spelled with an M or an N. Boy, there's a fight over that. It's always spelled with an N. Hey, you'll understand that. Ain't that true? The word does not exist in the Japanese language. When you go up to the web, they tell you, you can't spell it this way. You can't spell it this way. So the question is that then a person by that James Matossi came over, very controversial person. And the question is that he always spelled it with N. And then he told us the history. That Kempo goes back for centuries in Japan and things like that. And he laid out all of these things. And all of it was, no, this is not true. Okay? Suddenly in the last 2 years there's been 3 to 4 things that the Japanese cannot explain. A guy by the name of Hangman beat 119 straight Japanese. That's a lot of guys to beat. No rest, bow in, no rest, bow in. So what happened now, it's the end. Now Hank is big. They've got a choice. Do you join him or do you fight him? They brought him in, trained him, and created a special belt, a 3-colored belt, white, red, and black, which made him the 3rd highest in the entire world. He then created a position for him to control most of the outside world. But what happened, they realized that Szymanski was military and that he would sooner or later drift out. And I went to the website, to the book, John Gawker's book on Szymanski, a Shitaru styler. Trained Elvis Presley, he was a 5th degree. And he died in Vietnam. No, he didn't. I did all my research. He did not die in Vietnam. And one day, a young girl called and says, Hank Szymanski is my stepfather. He did not die. He's now an ordained Christian minister. Something happened, and you can take this story for what it's worth, and I go along with this story. I don't know if you people are familiar with My Lai and things like that. Okay. Stand up, you're a commander. I have this village down here. 7,500 people, and one of them is a trader. How do I get that trader? You take them all out. You kill every man, woman, and child there. And this is what the story got back happened to Szymanski. And he made a vow, if he came out of Vietnam alive, he vowed then that he would turn his life to Christ, which he did. Which he did. And he married this woman with child, and they did not even know he was a martial artist. They did not realize that he was something unheard of in the military. Okay, so that over a period of time, okay, here's what really fooled everyone is that Hangman died of cancer. And we finally contacted the mother, and she has his diploma that he gave, his membership card that he gave, and things like that. And here it is that they found out not only did he give Elvis there, he gave Elvis a second-degree black belt. Okay, but more than that, like say on his diploma, all of the top Japanese in Japan, Yamaguchi, Funikoshi, all of them signed his. And it's all under Kempo Karate. And this is what Matossi had been telling them, that this is a separate system. In the middle of the 1800s, the United States sailed into Japan with the warships. And the Japanese realized we cannot fight the Americans with a sword. So they eliminated the samurai class completely. You no longer have a job. There are no samurais. It didn't exist. And then the edict went out. When the sanctity of human life was affirmed, which means you just couldn't go out and kill someone, was affirmed, Kempo was made an illegal art. So they specifically knew what Kempo was, where it came from. It was a fighting and killing art. Okay, you go and sit down. So that now, 3 or 4 weeks ago, I've always got that one nut. Right? Or Seafood Jack. No, I know, we're joking. You have to know these people I'm talking about. If you don't know who Seafood Jack is, you're probably never going to be able to just forget it. You didn't hear the word Seafood Jack. Okay. But what happened then is that I had this attorney in the area, St. Louis, and he's always been interested. Well, here's Matossi said, this is the temple we studied at, this boom, 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 boom. So for 10 years, finally, he took his wife to Japan. And there's the temple exactly where Matossi said it was. And this is how they taught it exactly. And we've got it up on the web now. We'll have it more than that. And that the problem, I get into it with James Matossi, he ended up in a situation where someone was murdered. And he did not pull the trigger, but he was then convicted back in California of being, if you were an accomplice, you were guilty. The Supreme Court said, that's fine, but you can't execute him. He died in prison. But what happened is that there were a lot of shady parts of it, but as you go back, it's all right there. And he went to prison, and then he went to trial. Does Johnny Cochran and Oyedu mean anything? They were the same attorneys that O.J. Simpson had. He was, what it is, he was a spy for the United States, he and his mother. They could never tell you who they were. Okay, but there's a 4,000-page transcript that took us 15 years to find. And we put it up on a web. And in those 4,000 pages, everything is there. Did you go through and research those 4,000 pages? No one knows. I did. There's only 200 pages you need to know. Little things like this on the transcript. James Matossi is black. Terry Lee is black, the one who did the killing. Theoretically, Matossi owed money to him from a Japanese family. He sent Terry Lee over there, who took his wife. Terry Lee and his wife came in. The wife sat in the living room when he went in and beat the wife almost to death and killed the husband. They had one problem. under the fingernails are the hairs of the person who did the killing, and they were not of a black man. And I think Terry Lee summed it up so well. Matossi said, what idiot would take his wife with a screwdriver to kill someone? But they had to get Matossi off the street. He was too much of a burden. Okay, let's take a short little break here for water. Come back about any questions. Any questions? Then there's some specific self-defense techniques I want to get into. Go ahead, take a break. Now, this would be the Japanese way of coming and really putting him down. Go ahead. And they would move in even more. They would break that arm and things like that. The Chinese now would take the same thing, but take him back. So you see the same application. Mark, take breaking the sword. Okay. The Chinese would take and bring this hand up and use it for the leverage. Go ahead. Oh, that's where it came from. You see, and then there's certain ways as you get into it. You know, how do you put that? Like I watch people going through, yes, these been different maneuvers and things. And what it is that I found out that almost all of them had a Chinese opening. And this is why they say, you know, how come Tracy's went so much in the Tiger Green and things like that? Because as soon as Jimmy Woo started teaching us, he said, let me show you where all of this comes from. And when he left Ed Parker, I won't get into the, you know, he left Ed Parker. He said, you're to the point now. I'm going to introduce you to a Chinese instructor in San Francisco to show you where these came from. Okay. And as you take it from there is that, or just take your basic threaded needle. Okay, now what they do, at this point you can go in it, or you can put the lock on it, or you take the technique that comes from it. And that, the problem with Grandmaster Hong, by 5 o'clock he'd already drank a full fifth of whiskey. So you got to the point you couldn't trust him. You couldn't trust him in things like that. But as you took each take, oh, this is where it comes from. This is where it comes from. I tell you, one of the persons, if you can find him now, I don't think his tapes are readily available, is Dave German. When it comes to a classic Kempo jiu-jitsu system, Dave German was unbelievable. Just like life and death. You want someone to cover your back, make it Judo Gene LeBell. Gene LeBell, okay? You may never get here stories. The trouble with him, he choked Bruce Lee out twice in front of people. And worse than that, he said, come here for a second. Ed, grab my hand. And he choked out my instructor, Ed Parker, in front of everyone. You gotta sit down. See why they weren't very good friends? But what was happening, Judo Gene LeBell was a stunt man. He didn't want you to get hurt. And Parker and these guys didn't care less of. Therefore, he put a little bit of pain on them. To the point, you know, that there's a certain amount of respect. And I wished I had it from your t-shirts. I was choked out by Judo Gene LeBell, and I was. Everyone was choked out by Gene LeBell. Bart, everything out there. But he's still alive, but he, like he said, I can be the baddest ass man in all of Hollywood and never work another day. So when he choked Ed out, he was sending a message, This is how these people make their living. Very, very strong on it. Okay, good. Sit down, and I'll just take. We'll get to your questions and then techniques. Go ahead. Any questions? People, persons, techniques. Why we're doing techniques? Okay.
Dad, we had a question about. Could you tell him how we came out with the gi?
Okay.
The checkered gi.
The good-looking girl in the back with a nice bottom. There has to be something to distinguish you. And I look at here, except for there's nothing else. Okay, the blue, yeah. And that, I would say, he's probably more into the mixed martial arts, am I right? Okay, he's not. He lied to me. You know, you take a look at it, what distinguishes him from the rest of the people and things like that. And Ray Klingenberg, one of our top guys, and Joe Lewis were in New Orleans. And they went to a head shop. You know what a head shop is, don't you? Okay, joke time. Joke time. I hope I don't tread on someone religiously. The first miracle that Christ ever performed was changing water into wine. The first miracle that Bruce ever did, he took a fortune cookie and turned it into a brownie. Yeah. He liked his brownies. You know, Bruce was hooked on a certain amount of narcotics and things. And both his instructor and his father were licensed to smoke opium. But that's all right. 1/5 of everyone in China was on opium and things. Okay, but anyway, and they saw this psychedelic pattern. And I think there's more to Joe Lewis, and he could see the potential for it. So what he did, he just bought the pattern, but the pattern was copyrighted. So what the guy did, he took this entire pattern and changed it just a little bit. Okay. The problem with this then is that when you tried to cut it, each pattern changed. But we turned out 200 of these. Turned out 200 of these. And when you put 200 of these out there, it can be one. So all you saw in this picture point was these, you know, psychedelic. And when the person got moving and things like that. But what it is, the person you had behind it was an ass kicker. And like story time, Roger Green, tough kid out of Oklahoma, put this gi on, and they laughed their ass off. This is Texas and Oklahoma, full contact. Roger Green was the last man standing. The gi was ripped, the gi was bloody and things. So what it was is that when you take a look at some of the pictures of the text, you know exactly it was Tracy. It was Tracy. And people hated Tracy's because, well, let me just go back to this again. None of our schools ever had more than 80 to 100 students. Okay. But back then now, the average school, can you believe this, was making $50,000 a year. That's equivalent to $250,000 you're taking home, okay? My Ferrari now sells for $4 million. I paid $10,800 for it. I paid $6,800 for my Porsche. I paid $4,200. Yeah, I had every toy I ever wanted. And this is what it is that the trouble is, you're a young kid coming up. This is no reflection upon him. You're making so much money, you don't know what to do with it. How do you make more money? Everyone got too heavy into drugs. Everyone got that. That's why New York area was just on the fringe of being out of it. But down below us in Pennsylvania, that will have nothing to do with it. Pete Becker, good martial artist, is heavy into gambling. He owes the mafia $50,000, which is $250,000 now. He's big and tough till the hell. They put a hit out on Pete. The guy in the heat, at this particular point, then lays the hit on. It's a rainy day. The guy comes into the studio, goes back, and there's a bam! Unbelievable commotion back there. The guy is back there had blown the instructor away with a shotgun. Pete Becker came in, the shotgun he jammed and put 6 bullets into him. That's Philadelphia. And so people say, why don't you have the game? And at this particular point then, is that maybe I deserve it, maybe I don't. They know who's after it, it's the mafia. Tracy's did it. And Ed would say, you cross Tracy's, he'll have you killed. He just did it. They all thought we were connected with the mafia. And like the FBI called us in, with our attorneys and everything else, they said, you're either so clever we don't know what you're doing, or you're innocent. He said, but everywhere as we go, Tracy's people end up being killed. This is one element that we can, so when you get down to that Philadelphia area, I won't have a thing to do with it. And you understand why. They knew who the killers were. And finally the mafia told Delphi, the guy who goes, either you go in and confess, or we're going to take you and your entire family out. So you're just at the dividing line. Okay. But this has happened in more than one place. It's just that simple. Okay. Go on, any of your questions now. What it did, it distinguished you. It distinguished you when you put that gi on. And a lot of people were not racing with it just to fight for it. And in the entire time we had this, we had several teams. Several teams. There'd be a New York team, a California, a Denver team. Okay. And in that entire time, we were being launched by Chuck North's group. By one point. Just out there. And then it finally got to the point, what I really wanted to do, once again, was destroy point fighting. So at the same time, we now introduced the kickboxing. And that was the end of the point fighting. Any questions now? But go ahead.
When Joe Louis came,
Go ahead.
when Joe Louis came to your organization,
When Joe Louis came to the organization,
what did he bring in terms of his style or boxing principles?
what did Joe Louis bring to the style? For
What did
us?
he bring anything to the table?
Okay. Good question.
Thank you.
They hated Tracy's. We were making money. And the only person hated more than us was Joe Louis. He was the badass of the martial arts. And when Joe Louis stepped into that ring, someone was going to get hurt.
Yeah.
Some of these are local people that you know from here. Dennis Knackert. But he will never admit that he ever studied Tracy's, that he had a Ferrari, that all of his money came from Tracy. J.T. Will, most famous of all the referees, unfortunately got caught up in the drug scene. Joe Louis himself. Ray Klingenberg. Larry Demerit. A lot of these people don't mean, but what it is, they were every one of us an ass kicker. But the little stories that go with it, Larry Demerit now beat everyone out there. And Ron Marchini was the #1 ranked team. Then, put the #1 guy in the hospital. His student then came up, a guy by the name of Graydon, and hurt Larry so bad he could never fight again. He was afraid that, you know, what he did is put his collarbone here. He was afraid of it. And later on, I talked to Larry about it. You know, I told him, you weren't in for it for self-defense. You're in for it for sport. And like Joe Louis, like I pointed out, anyone can beat Joe Louis in a point tournament. I challenged all those people to beat him. Checkered, not one of them would fight him. Said, let's get up there for real. But like I say, it just got to the point that, like there was no money. Like, as bad as it is, the MMA is giving some paychecks to some of these people. What White has done, he's taken all these old fighters, they're over the hill, and give them one more paycheck. So give them credit for that. But what it did is that, to this day, okay, John Cochran now was the editor of Black Belt magazine. And they told him, there's two names you could never mention, Tracy's or Lewis, and you put them together. That was the end of it. That was the end of it. But we realized that the Black Belt magazines and things like that, like Inside Kung Fu, they're simply paying them under the table. Simply paying them under the table. Go ahead. Any other questions?
Any questions? Yes.
Was there any method to your madness about putting the techniques together in certain belts?
That's a phenomenal question. With the order of the techniques in the belt, was there, well, we'll get to how you named them, but was there a reason why sumo's in orange and stranglehold's in orange? Why not in another belt?
Like, it was so scientific, you will never believe it. So scientific, okay?
Came out of the hat?
Well, later on. There's myself, there's my brother, there's four of us. And we've got hundreds of techniques. Your turn, come up with a name. We've already used scratching too many times, Tigers, yeah. It's just that, and it's ironic though, the kimono grab, for 5 years we misspelled it. And what we tried, if I had it to do now, looking back on it, but Bruce Lee asked me the same question. He said, how did you come up with these names, Joe? I said, look at the Chinese menu. They all have a name, don't they? King Pao Chicken, this, you know, that. So we went down the list. And, you know, just, if I had it to do over again, all guns would have flame in it. All knives would have steel. And then where possible, you know, I would give credit to the Chinese on a lot of these locks. Like one, I gave credit to Dan Ivan. No, I had to go further back than who was Dan Ivan, no, but who was, you know, and then I found out his jiu-jitsu background. And as we got into it later on, we were having a big conference with one of the Black Belt magazines. And Dan Ivan would say the same thing. In the early days, Kempo was a lot more jiu-jitsu than it is today. But at that particular point, we had 40 techniques. We then cut it down to 30. But when I cut them down to 30, I had an A and B in it. Okay. Mark, get up here for a second. 2 men opponent sides. No, just grab a couple bodies. Okay. Now what it is, these are grabs from the side. But which one are they? Mark, they grab to the shoulder, to your shoulder. Go your first movement. Okay. Now, they restrict the arms a little bit more. Go to B version. See, so what it is, there wasn't just an A. There's a B there. And what happens if this goes wrong? What happens if this goes wrong? And we're going to be adding more as we go along now. You go ahead and get back there again.
You want us to do the
No,
opponent
not
sides
that.
again?
What,
Okay.
what was that?
Do you want us to do the opponent at sides again?
The what?
Do you want us to do that technique again?
No,
Okay,
no.
that's good.
What I want to do now is to go to some of the more vicious things. Keep him here. He looks like he's a broken shoulder. A very effective technique is the crash of the eagle. Do slow. Do crash of the eagle, Mark. You know, crash of the eagle, okay?
No, get me, choke me. There we go. Who loves you, baby?
Now, Mark, I use a different end. Even more vicious on this. The eagle has landed. Now, notice how he pins the one hand. Now, watch as he comes around. Go ahead. Take it, Mark.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Oh, you are. Yes, you're going to shatter. And this, no. And this is classic jiu-jitsu. But what they did is I talked to the guy, said that was too vicious. The same thing, story time. The Japanese are putting on a great jiu-jitsu demonstration. And we came back, we were just, Parker was pissed off because we were giving so much to the Japanese. For a half an hour, he sat there and went through technique after technique after technique. I said, why aren't you teaching them? He said, too dangerous. I said, for whom? He said, for the instructor. Can you imagine on that? When you're up there and this person does, you come across. There's technique, Mark, going to our tiger's jaw.
For somebody trying to put tiger's jaw on me.
Yeah.
So go ahead, the tiger. I'm gonna come down this one. Reverse around, catch it.
And this is classic jiu-jitsu. It's what he's doing with the other hand. How you're maneuvering in position. So when we got there, is that James Wu pointed out, he said, most people never get it. He said, you developed chi early in your life. You understood what it took to hurt someone, to put all of that force in there. Just like the classic on that is see me breaking, the top board has not been broken. Now, I was good at this, but James Lee in San Francisco is even better. 5 bricks, which one you want broken? Which 2 do you want broken? But like I said, you can't do it all of the time. You can't do it all of the time. But what you learn to do, and this is the biggest problem that he had with Bruce Lee in his fight. He said, your hands are too soft. After his fight with Wong Jack Man, he couldn't hit him anymore. His hands were swollen from here. This is 2 days after the fight. At Black Belt Magazine, says the same, my hands hurt. And like James Lee was pointing out, if you don't have the ability to take a man out immediately, you will never win a fight. And that's what happened, is in a fight with Wong Jack Man, he couldn't hit him anymore. His hands hurt too much. His hands hurt too much. Okay, what was their other question?
Along the lines of you had so many moves. We went over how you named them. You probably want to explain. You put some of those moves. For example, you wanted to put a lot of the moves in green belt that they would need to learn for the kata.
Yeah. The next one. Yeah, go ahead. That's exactly it. Is that most of the top, like Chow, hated kata until they retired. I said, oh, the secret of the techniques is in the kata. And Chow, the last years of his life, the same way here, dropped the fighting part of it and went strictly to kata. Strictly to kata and things like that. And as you get into it, the thing about kata is that, okay, you just watch this go through, the eagle has landed. None of you could do it because it was too complicated. Go through the kata version very slow, Mark. The eagle has landed. It's that simple. But no, you've got to have this hand pinned. And there came a point,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, there came a point, it's all over, isn't it?
Oh, sure.
But none of you saw that. But there comes, oh my God, if he could
They
continue
might have
this,
heard.
you would have smashed, you would have crushed that. Something that also that you have to take reality is that I want to break your neck. How do you break the neck? Well, as they taught the military, all these people and things like this, not one instructor that has ever used this for real. It's nice in theory. It's nice in theory, but you see this, the woman walks by, twists his head off, and every guy always goes right down. Okay, we're going to take this, what do you do? Now you got to pin on. Use him again, damn it.
Yeah.
Put a tiger jaw on Mark. Now, Mark, drop down. You immediately at this point drop so you can't set the tiger. And at the same time, okay, you're going to go into your movement. Okay, now this is a killing movement. Now let's say the same thing. You're going to take his head from behind and twist or break its neck. No, okay, Mark, drop the head. No, you're not. But what happens, and this is what we'll work on, a lot of times like that, we still remember that woman saying, bullshit. Another one in Philadelphia. I didn't realize it was the head of the school. And she did it. I said, that won't work. And loud enough for everyone to say, oh yes, it will. She was left unconscious on the ground. And you actually think you could give away 100 pounds and choke me out? It's not going to happen. And this is where so much of, let's say the Kajo Kempo and the Kempo and Chow, they like that. They know it works. Look, there's a lot of techniques in there. There may be a different one that's better. But you get into it, there are certain things, okay, Mark, kneel down. Overhead knife, twice for a reel. Going right there. This got big, he's got a 10-inch butcher knife coming at me to kill me. Okay, I know it works yet. We don't, but how you've done that 1,000,000 times. Remember when you saw him doing the, my golly, where does this stuff come from? And you get into it, just once again, again, overhead knife, 1, 2, step. Now, at this point, how am I going to get this knife away from me? Took him down, kicked him in the head, that's how I got rid of it. But it was just a classic movement, and just on an overhead knife, if I had no time, okay, story time, you understand what happened. I'm recently married. 10 o'clock at night, I'm just out of school, and I have nothing but my jockey shorts on. A woman is yelling and screaming, he's killing me, he's killing me. And I rush to the door, and here's a woman covered in blood. No one else has opened their door. And he's coming with a knife for her. No, I stepped in. That knife was meant to kill. As soon as he did, boom, went right to her. And typical of this, the guy had political influence. And afterwards, he said, well, I'm not going to press charges, and that's all right. He tried to kill me and my wife was witness. But there was enough political pull that it never got anywhere. It never got anywhere. Okay. But that it happens. And the same way in a gun. Shotgun, boom. 3 seconds is all I had. You're in different places. Where are these coming from? Where are these coming from? And okay, speed now. This has nothing to do with what you would think about speed. 57-year-old man is famous for his speed shooting. You know what double action is? That's pulling the trigger each time. In okay, blink. That's 2/5 of a second. In 2/5 of a second, he can put 5 bullets into a playing card at 15 feet. So like I say, when you're talking this, and when you're walking, looking at a track and field, 1/10 of a second is all you've got. That light goes off, then you jump the gun and thing. But what happens is that, and most of these, when you're talking gun also, Mark, I want you to do a gun technique. I want you to get back there. Get here. Face me with the gun. No, face me with the gun. Get back. The whole thing about it is that John McTurnan, probably most of you know John around here, 7-Eleven. Okay, Mark, put the gun up. They do the first movement, no back mark, and can't complete the kill movement. The money isn't yours, don't go for it, or things like that. Bart Vale recently was at a gas station, paying for gas by cash because it's cheaper. And he was hassling the owner. And he started to throw a punch at Bart. And Bart simply deflected and punches him out. He goes out to his car, there's blood. He had been cut and didn't even know it. I never saw this was although knowing him got it. The guy was left-handed. But the technique still worked. You go through certain patterns and things like that. And the first thing is you're going to find if you go, okay, a knife, 1/3 of you are going to die. And the guy who's done the best on knives is a police officer out of Canada. And these are police officers. And 80% of the people never realized it was a knife attack. Never realized it was a knife attack. Okay, other questions? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Did you and James Brown train with Ed Parker at the same time?
Did you and James Ebrow study at the same time?
Yes.
I even see a picture of him up on the over there.
Well, that's the Lineage. I tried to get as close to the Lineage as possible.
Ed Parker studied under 18 instructors, but would never tell you what he learned. I always give credit to the people I learned things from. And James Ebrow was never good enough to play professional basketball, but for 2 years he toured and played against the Harlem Globetrotters. At 5'8", he could slam dunk. As you see there's a, do we have him doing a jump kick or just up there?
No, just up there.
Got a beautiful portrait of him.
Oh, that's a real, that one of the best kickers, his name is Okazaki. Put him out of business and he had to go to England. One of the most beautiful jump kicks you've ever seen. James Ebrow is doing the same jump kick, but he's breaking the boards. There's a big difference on it. Okay, is that Ed Parker only had 4 kicks. That's all he had. Okay. James Ebrow then was in very good terms with the other Japanese. Benny Ozaki in particular, who Ed Parker and he had problems with. And that he would go over and watch to see how the Shotokan did the kicks. He brought them back and passed them on to us. And you go out there as that dynamic karate, the Japanese are much better kickers than the Koreans. But the Koreans get credit for it. And as you look at the Japanese, what they really have, they have one of the most beautiful kicks I've ever seen in my life, the front thrust kick. All they're talking about is balance. And showing how you project that hip forward, get an extra 12 to 14 inches of power into it. Therefore, as you you get out and you know these different people. What we would do, you get together and exchange technique. You don't study. Let me show you my best technique on this. Let me show you my best technique on this. And there's certain, you know, that just certain patterns. Here's the problem. The Koreans and the Japanese, 99% of the time, never want to grab. Well, that leaves you jiu-jitsu people out there, doesn't it? How do you control someone when they have gun, knife, club, and things like that, or more than one opponent? And this is where, for instance, that the Kaju Kempo made sure, Chow did too, you never ended up on the ground. You never end up on the ground. But yeah, like James, it just some of the other people, I'm not sure the pictures they have up there.
That's Matossi, Chow, Parker, Ebrow, yourself, and Trent, who we honored last night. I don't have in there I don't have Klingenberg or Freiberg in there.
And so what, you know, just that you take a look out there, and look, a lot of these people, you know, you get to know for real. And in his book, on Masoyama, where he's breaking it, that isn't Masoyama. That's his best friend, but he won't let him see the face on it. Her name is Kubota. Okay.
Taekwondo.
It's the internationals. And Bruce Lee had just been entered. And now to bring up the Japanese guy who's entered it. It's an elevated platform in a ring. He takes some bricks and puts some bricks on top of it. Puts his hand there and takes a 3-pound hammer. Clunk! Yeah, that's exactly how we all were. I mean, look at, we're martial artists. There's a lot of things that, how in the hell is he doing that? You know, and you look at it, you know, and then a friend of mine, Lucky Chan, got a Coke bottle. We sit there, bang, 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 toughening them up. Chinese guy, breaking with his head. No, let me explain what he's got there. He's laying there. He's got a 200-pound block of concrete, and they're breaking it. And they're breaking it across the temple. And what he did every day, he hit his head against the wall 100 times. I used to have a good video of that, and they got destroyed. Oh, thank God. I didn't want people to this. Rodney Hard, one of my top guys from here, stretched out there, and he's got a bed of spikes on his stomach. He's got a 200-pound thing of the concrete on it. And then it's been broken. And you see he's laying on a bed of machetes. Yeah, one of my own people. There's a scientific way of doing it. It's just the same way now. We have to stop right at this point and go into a self-defense technique. Mark, we're going to go to the OJ knife. What do you do when a knife is right through the throat? Go ahead, get up. Take a 5-minute break. We're going to go into something physical. And then just screwing over him on the money and things like that. And the book is basically finished. And you heard the thing that Ed Parker gave Jimmy Woo 50 cents and put him on a bus. No, they were in good terms at this point. He flew him back to San Francisco. He was supporting Jimmy Woo's wife in San Francisco. He was living with it. He was doing all right. But it finally got to the point that how much money did Jimmy Woo get and how much money did Ed Parker get? And he had a lot of good friends, just like Joni does here, and that were into construction. He'd end up spending the rest of his life and a ghetto of it. That's all it is. Jimmy Woo died being a millionaire. And what it was is that Jimmy Woo did all, he had his own house. Had a JoJo attached to it. And things like that. And I'm not sure he paid all of his taxes. But he made sure that his son and daughter got the college education. When he died, the home sold for $640,000 cash, busted. And like he said, I never went back to San Francisco. They were all losers. They were all losers and things like that. And it's just that even after I left Jimmy Woo, he would still teach me. Okay, he had two top, James Ebrow and Rich Montgomery. And James Ebrow has the thing out, 5 contests to black belt. He said, that's all I'm ever going to give him. He's too wushu-ish. He said, the stuff he's doing is not going to save you on the street and things like that. But the next person was Rich Montgomery. He also was basketball. He played on the BYU championship team. Fantastic martial artist. But he still did not have the elevation that Ebrow did, anything like that. And the thing that angered Jimmy was that I'm getting old, so he's older than I am. He said the knowledge I give to him, he will not pass on. He said, why should I teach only you? You know, like I looked last night at the banquet we had in a promotion. How many people have been taught there? Did someone get an exact count on the banquet? How many people? And that's only part of them.
About 40.
You know, and this is what it is. And then not only that, these were only the black belts. What about the brown belts? What did he get? And you know, the old Bruce Lee saying, the old seafood has to watch out what it teaches the young student. Someday the young student will be that old seafood. When I got into the martial arts, I never thought I was going to end up teaching it. We were going to law school, we thought. I'm glad we did. All my friends hate law school. If you've just seen now, as an attorney, there are no jobs. You might as well close down 90% of the law school way.
When did you start calling it Tracy's Karate?
More stories. More stories. Is that when we moved to San Francisco, no one knew who we were. No one knew who we were, things like that. And certain people knew who Ed Parker was, so it didn't matter to us, and things like that. And Ed was having a problem, though, with identity, is that he was putting out a new book with Jimmy Woo, Secrets of China. Well, they broke completely. Okay. And at the same time now, Ed Parker was working with Jimmy Lee, who was a good friend of Bruce Lee, to put out a book. He got no credit and he got no money for it and things like that. And the book set comes from a thing called a book, but what happened is that it was no longer any book. And the book set 1/3 had been left out and things like that. So Ed Parker now had the point that he was teaching Kempo. No, Chow said he is not teaching Kempo at all. Then he was teaching Chinese karate. He was, no, he is not. For the period then up till about 1970, he was using all the training materials and manuals. But now suddenly we didn't have 1 to 2 schools. We're getting enough where we had 100 studios. And Ed couldn't take this. So down in Texas, he would sell you a turnkey operation. hand me $25,000. He would build a studio, furnish it, give you with a trained instructor, and then you paid royalties for it. And he sold them mainly to airline pilots, which meant that if being a pilot, if you lost the instructor, you didn't have anything, did you? And that's exactly what happened. And every one of the studios, Ed Parker's, went bankrupt. And this will never happen again. Enter American Kempo. With your name up there, and our name up there, and the thing is, ours were successful. Like, they wrote a lot of articles on us. They said, they do make money, and you can't buy a belt from Tracy. It's just that simple. Those are the things we had going for us. And when we brought Joe Louis in, we now had ass kickers. We not only had it, we had them worldwide. We wanted to expand out even more. We went heavy into the kickboxing, and it went very heavy into the shoot fighting. So we were in MMA to start with. But we didn't like the way it was going, the brutality of it. The brutality of it. But what happened then is there comes a point that you have to make a decision. The same thing, I fired Joe Louis. Face to face. A little insight you'll never hear again. Joe Louis said, no one knows it. You know I'm not a fighter. And I fight to bluff. He said, I can't fight you. He said, you know who I am. So he went his way, and I went mine. And like I said, Joe, there's no future in doing a movie star. Those things are over today. What was the original question? The name? Okay, as I came out with the new manual, it's time to break with everyone. And at that particular point, let's take our early group of people here. We let them teach their own classes. It really didn't matter at that particular point. And then we got to the point, no, that, and I would cross-rank. I would cross-rank good people into it. So at that particular point, I sat down with my people, the Tracy system, Kempo, period. There were occasions now, or for political reasons, I would promote people. They were damn good martial artists. But this guy was kind of an idiot. And he came down and wanted to join the Tracy system. And I said, why should I? He said, in the last 3 years, I've just paid my instructor $300,000. I said, sit down. And he was just a joke as far as, he said, yeah, we got this idiot out there that's paying us this money. Because they think they're getting a legitimate rank and things. So there are occasions, situations like that. Or there were some good people in different systems, especially at Scream and things like that. Any of you know who Leonard Trigg is? 6'9". Organization decided they would screw over him by not giving him rank. I gave him rank. And I said, you got a problem, you know where my studio's at. And when you see people, the guy was fantastic. The guy was fantastic as a martial artist. And they figured if you cut off the rank, then you got to. But the thing is that when it's like, suddenly, hey, when did Parker die? Your sister's birthday.
December 15th.
What year?
91, I think.
Yeah.
90?
Parker died.
90, 91.
Who takes over the organization? I want 7 of you to stand up. Just 7 to stand up. That's good over there. You know I'm not going to live forever. I have to choose someone. It's going to be you.
From the
Over
force.
there. You know I'm gonna, okay, it's gonna be you. Skip Hancock lived with his family for 5 years, waiting for Ed to die. And at the funeral, Mrs. Parker was there and said, Ed chose no one. You go back again. You go back. That's it. And Mrs. Parker, I can't give people rank. And, you know, I've lived quite a lot, but I'm going to live forever. No, and our organization is so big.